There was a time when a family car couldn't afford to be boring, a time when even a vehicle designed to carry kids, luggage, and memories had to project success, style, and pride. Today, many people see wagons as nothing more than practical cars, useful, functional. But in the 1950s, they were something very different. They were symbols of a life in motion, of growing families, of endless highways, of an optimistic America that believed the future would always be better. And here comes the uncomfortable question. What if I told you that some of the most beautiful wagons ever created were not accidents, but carefully crafted design statements, just as intentional as any coupe or convertible of the era? In this video, we're going to explore the most beautiful American wagons of the 1950s. Not the fastest, not the most practical, but the ones that best captured the spirit of an unrepeatable decade. If you've ever felt nostalgia for a time you may not have even lived through, this journey is for you. Because these wagons didn't just carry families, they carried dreams on wheels. 1955 to 1957 Chevrolet Nomad. If there is one wagon that stopped being just a family car and became an absolute icon of American design, this is it. The Chevrolet Nomad doesn't look like a traditional wagon. It looks like a sporty coupe that, almost by accident, decided to carry luggage and family. 2 doors, a sloping roofline, tight proportions, and a silhouette that still looks modern even today. In the 1950s, when most wagons prioritized space and practicality above all else, the Nomad dared to prioritize something far riskier: desire. Chevrolet didn't think of it as a utility vehicle. They thought of it as a style statement, and that's obvious from every angle. Every line is intentional, every surface carefully considered. There's no excess, no visual clumsiness. It's a wagon that feels low, long, and elegant, as if it's always ready to hit the open road, even when parked. Inside, the Nomad offered enough space to travel comfortably, but without losing that feeling of being something special. It wasn't an anonymous family vehicle, it was the car of someone who wanted to take their family along, without giving up looking good while doing it. And this is where many people are surprised, because beneath that refined design, the Nomad could be equipped with very serious V8 engines for its time. From the well-known 265 cubic inch V8 to the 283 cubic inch unit, which in fuel-injected form delivered up to 283 horsepower. Respectable numbers even by today's standards, and extremely high for a car with this image in the 1950s. What's interesting is that the Nomad never needed to brag about performance. It wasn't created to race, it was created to dominate visually. That balance between beauty, restrained power, and exclusivity made it something truly unique within Chevrolet's lineup. It wasn't cheap, it wasn't common, and it wasn't practical for everyone. And precisely because of that, it became legendary. Today, the Chevrolet Nomad is one of the most sought-after wagons in the world. A well-preserved example can easily sell for between $80,000 and $150,000. Or even more if it retains original components and a high-quality restoration. It's not just a beautiful wagon. For many, it's the definitive wagon of the 1950s. 1955 to 1957 Pontiac Safari. After seeing what Chevrolet achieved with the Nomad, Pontiac understood something very clearly. The public no longer wanted just a practical wagon. They wanted a wagon with personality. And that's how the Safari was born. At first glance, the Safari shares certain proportions with the Nomad. It's long, low, and elegant. But its character is different. While the Chevrolet felt like a refined coupe with extra space, the Pontiac projected something more solid, more muscular, more serious. It was a wagon with presence. Pontiac always had a very distinct identity within General Motors. Its cars weren't the most luxurious, nor the most conservative. They were cars with attitude. And the Safari brought that philosophy into the family car world without apology. Its design is clean and well-balanced, with lines that flow naturally without exaggeration. It didn't need extreme fins or excessive ornamentation to stand out. Its elegance came from its proportions and a sense of restrained strength. It was a wagon that looked perfectly at home in the city, but also ready to devour miles of highway. Inside, the Safari offered everything a 1950s family could want. Generous space, wide seats, good visibility, and an atmosphere that conveyed quality. It wasn't flashy, but it wasn't basic either. It hit that perfect middle ground between comfort and character. Under the hood, Pontiac offered V8 engines that matched the car's image perfectly. Power plants designed to move large bodies with ease, delivering strong torque from low revs. It wasn't a sporty wagon, but it wasn't slow either. It felt confident, stable, and surprisingly agile for its size. And here's the key to the Safari. It never tried to be the most famous. It never tried to steal the spotlight from the Nomad. It simply did things its own way, more discreet, more mature, more solid. For many buyers at the time, that was exactly what they were looking for. Today, the Pontiac Safari is one of those wagons that enthusiasts appreciate more and more. Not just for its design, but because it represents an elegant alternative to the more famous icons. In today's market, a well-preserved Safari typically sells for between $70,000 and $120,000, depending on condition and originality. It wasn't the loudest wagon of its time, but it was one of the most balanced. 1957 Oldsmobile Super 88 Fiesta wagon. Now, we enter a very different category, because if the first two cars on this list are well-known and widely respected, the Super 88 Fiesta is, for many people, a genuine surprise. This is not a wagon you see on posters. It's not a wagon everyone remembers, and precisely because of that, its impact today is so strong. Oldsmobile took one of its most successful models of the 1950s, the Super 88, and transformed it into a wagon that broke away from the traditional idea of a family car. The result was a vehicle that felt lower, longer, and visually more aggressive than most of its rivals. Its design is clean, but intentional. The lines are tight, the front end has real character, and the overall look feels closer to a high-end automobile than to simple family transportation. There's no unnecessary excess, but there's also no neutrality. This is a wagon with a personality of its own. Inside, the Fiesta wagon offered an environment clearly focused on comfort, but with that unmistakable Oldsmobile touch of sporty sophistication. It was spacious, well-finished, and designed for long-distance travel without effort. A car for families who didn't want to feel bored behind the wheel. And here's an important detail. Oldsmobile was always a brand that understood the balance between comfort and performance very well. Under the hood, the Super 88 carried V8 engines capable of moving the body with absolute ease. It wasn't an extreme wagon, but it delivered a sense of confidence and smooth power that many others simply didn't have. The Fiesta wagon was never produced in large numbers, and that explains why, even today, it remains largely unknown, even among enthusiasts. Not because it wasn't beautiful, but because it quietly slipped through the cracks in an era full of icons. Today, a well-preserved Oldsmobile Super 88 Fiesta wagon typically sells for between $45,000 and $80,000, figures that are relatively reasonable when you consider its rarity, design, and history. And here comes the key question. What do you value more in a classic wagon, one that's a universally recognized icon, or an elegant rarity that almost no one remembers? Leave it in the comments, because that difference says a lot about how each person lives their passion for classic cars. 1957 to 1959 Mercury Colony Park. After talking about rarities and surprises, we arrive at a very different kind of beauty, one that doesn't need to raise its voice to be respected. The Colony Park was always a wagon designed for people who wanted something more than a Ford, but without going to the excess of a Cadillac. And that middle position completely defined its personality. At first glance, it doesn't try to impress with extravagance. Its design is long, balanced, and restrained, with smooth lines and a presence that conveys calm and status at the same time. The wood paneling isn't there to grab attention, but to reinforce a sense of tradition and refinement. This was a wagon made for well-off families who valued good taste over spectacle. People who didn't need to prove anything, but wanted to travel with comfort, space, and a flawless image. Inside, the Colony Park delivered exactly what its exterior promised. A spacious, well-finished interior with quality materials and an atmosphere designed for long, relaxed trips. It wasn't an exciting car in a sporty sense. It was a car that made everything feel easy. Under the hood, Mercury offered V8 engines capable of moving this large body without effort. Smooth, quiet engines that were authoritative when needed. They weren't about flashy numbers, but about calm, steady power delivery, perfect for endless American highways. And that's the key to the Colony Park. It wasn't designed to be remembered as the most radical. It was designed to be lived with. For years, these wagons were part of the everyday landscape of an America that traveled, grew, and looked to the future with optimism. Maybe that's why they generate such a particular kind of nostalgia today. Not because they're rare, but because they're deeply representative. In today's market, a well-preserved Mercury Colony Park typically sells for between $50,000 and $90,000, depending on condition and originality. It's not a wagon that shouts beauty, it's a wagon that whispers it. 1950 to 1954 Chrysler Town and Country. To understand just how far the idea of a wagon could go in the 1950s, you have to look at Chrysler. The Town and Country wasn't simply a high-end family car. It was a statement of status. From the very first glance, it made it clear that it belonged in a different category. Large proportions, commanding presence, and the use of wood that didn't feel decorative, but almost architectural. Every panel was designed to convey craftsmanship, tradition, and luxury. This was not a wagon for everyone. It was a wagon for those who wanted the very best. At a time when family travel had become a central part of the American lifestyle, the Town and Country offered more than just space. It offered an experience. Traveling in one wasn't just comfortable, it was distinguished. Inside, the atmosphere reinforced that feeling. High-quality materials, wide seats, and an environment that felt more like an elegant living room than a utility vehicle. Everything was designed for long journeys without fatigue, with a constant sense of isolation and refinement. Under the hood, Chrysler installed large, smooth engines designed to move this imposing body effortlessly. There was no urgency, no tension. The car moved forward with confident calm, as if the road were always under control. And that's the essence of the Town and Country. It didn't try to be modern. It didn't try to be bold. It tried to be the best. During the early years of the decade, it represented the highest point of American family luxury. A wagon that proved practicality and elegance didn't just coexist, they elevated each other. Today, a well-preserved early 1950s Chrysler Town and Country typically sells for between $70,000 and $120,000, depending on condition and originality. It's not just one of the most beautiful wagons of the 1950s, it's one of the most representative of what that decade aspired to be. 1957 to 1959, Dodge Sierra Station Wagon. After talking about tradition, family, and shared memories, we arrive at a car that represents the exact opposite: boldness. The Sierra belongs to that late 1950s moment when Detroit completely lost its fear of excess. It was the age of jets, rockets, and the space race. And automotive design decided to embrace that madness with ever more daring lines. The Sierra didn't try to be discreet. It didn't try to be restrained. It tried to be seen. Pronounced fins, abundant chrome, and a silhouette that looked like it was in motion even when standing still. It was a wagon that blended family functionality with an almost theatrical aesthetic. For some, it was too much. For others, it was absolutely irresistible. Unlike more conservative wagons, the Sierra had personality from the very first glance. There was no doubt it belonged to the end of the decade. It was a reflection of an era when more always seemed better. Inside, the contrast was interesting. Despite its bold exterior, the interior fully delivered on its family car mission. Generous space, comfort for long trips, and a sense of openness that matched its exterior size. Under the hood, Dodge offered V8 engines capable of moving this large body without difficulty. It wasn't a car designed for extreme performance, but rather for solid, confident driving, even at higher highway speeds. The focus wasn't on racing, but on moving forward with authority. And that's what makes the Dodge Sierra special. It wasn't designed to please everyone. It was designed to stand out. Today, that boldness is exactly what makes it so appealing. In an era where many modern cars tend to look alike, the Sierra reminds us of a time when manufacturers weren't afraid to take risks. In today's market, a well-preserved Dodge Sierra station wagon typically sells for between $40,000 and $75,000, depending on condition and restoration quality. 1958 to 1959, Ford Country Squire. If there's one wagon that needs no introduction, it's this one. It wasn't just a car, it was a recurring image in millions of American households. a direct symbol of family, road trips, and everyday life in the 1950s. When people think of a classic station wagon with wood paneling, they're almost always thinking, whether they realize it or not, of the Country Squire. Its design became so familiar that it transcended the automobile itself and became part of the cultural landscape of an entire generation. Visually, it was big, solid, and proud of it. The wood paneling wasn't subtle, and it wasn't meant to be. It was a statement. This was a car built to carry the whole family, the luggage, the memories, and to do it with dignity and presence. The front end conveyed confidence. The proportions were well balanced, and the overall feel was one of robustness and security. It wasn't elegant in a sophisticated European sense like a Buick or a Chrysler. It was elegant in an honest, functional, deeply American way. Inside, the Country Squire was made to be lived in. Spacious, comfortable, practical, with a layout designed for long trips and daily use. It was the car of family vacations, school runs, and weekend getaways. A car that was present in the real lives of millions of people. Under the hood, Ford offered reliable V8 engines that were more than capable of moving this large body with ease. It didn't aim to impress with extreme numbers, but to deliver a solid, predictable, long-lasting experience. And it succeeded like few others. Here's the key to the Country Squire. It didn't try to be special. It was special precisely because it was everywhere. Today, that familiarity has turned into pure nostalgia. Seeing one is a reminder of a time when the road was part of the plan, not just a means to get somewhere faster. In today's market, a well-preserved Ford Country Squire typically sells for between $45,000 and $85,000, depending on condition, restoration, and originality. And now, I want your opinion. If you had to choose just one of these wagons to have in your garage today, which would it be, and why? The sporty elegance of the Nomad, the solid presence of the Safari, the nostalgia of the Country Squire, or the absolute luxury of the Town and Country? Leave it in the comments because every choice says something different about how we understand beauty and automotive history. And if you enjoyed this journey through the elegance of 1950s America, I recommend watching the video on screen. There, we explore the most beautiful cars of all time, machines that didn't just define a decade, but defined what beauty on wheels truly means, no matter the era. Click and keep traveling with us through the golden age of the American automobile. See you in the next video.